Hi B, good to see you.
Paul, hello.
We're back again. We're back
I
to the
know.
the belter out of the bowl. I just love this. Look at that bowl. I love this.
Give it a good
So
shake
so
today.
you and your technique of picking out the best we could have hoped for in a lovely statement. Go for it. Let's see one. Pull it out.
Okay, let's see what gets said in the real world, in the workplaces. Right,
Yes.
come on, a good one, please. Let's see this. Oh, okay. Paul, they don't speak up in meetings.
Wow, that now this is actually a good one. This
Mm,
this is going to be an
they're all
interesting
good.
conversation. They
Yeah.
are all good, but this is going to be an interesting conversation. It's There are so many facets to this. There are so many perspectives to this.
Mm.
I can remember I keep talking about remembering things way back. I make myself sound
That's because
really
you go
old.
way back.
Yeah, thanks.
You've seen a lot.
I have in my time. But this is something that you and I will have come across a lot, right?
Mm.
We will have either been in the meetings where
Been
you've
there.
got that introverted person sitting there going, I need time to process this. There's no point in me trying to jump in. We've got and actually what sits behind that. We often talk about judgment. We often talk about the instant thought that we have non-consciously about a scenario and a situation. Here's a classic one, isn't it?
Mm.
All too often, I've heard people say, well, they never speak up in meetings. So they are clearly weak, or they are clearly unable, or it can be a whole bunch of judgment calls, which are fundamentally false in almost every situation.
I think you're right. It depends on the reason for it, like why they don't. I mean, there are just so many. I mean, taking this personally in my experiences, um, you're putting your head above the parapet sometimes, right? I'm neurodiverse, dyslexia, so I spot all these things, the the elephant in the room is going, hello. Um, and actually it's dangerous. It can feel quite exposing to speak up when you've understood stuff from outside of the meeting, um, and bring it out safely. And actually being able to land information, it is something that needs to be practiced because it literally is the difference between if someone's going to sit there or people are going to sit there and perceive, you might have something valid,
Yeah.
but how that lands matters on whether you get shot because you put your head above the parapet or not. It just doesn't feel safe, does it?
It doesn't, and I get it, right? I mean, just to put some context, as you can probably tell, I'm far from being introverted. I will say,
Are you
and
not?
not in the slightest. But I do get it, right? And I think there's often a behavioral shift needed. I understand that someone who tends to process internally, who takes their time to understand and takes their time
Mm,
to feedback, there's a couple of challenges. One is you're absolutely right. You can feel like, well, I'm putting my head above the parapet here. And there's perceived risk, right?
yeah.
I think part of that is the culture of the organization. I think that's a big part of mitigating the feeling of risk.
Yeah.
And I think there's another element, and that is, and I see this a lot. I can be very general with this, but if I've been in many board meetings, I'm sure you have, and there tends to be quite dominant extroverted characters in there. And
Well,
there
are you
tends,
talking about the voice that shouts the loudest?
oh, of
Okay.
course.
Are they taking
And
up all the airtime?
yes,
Okay.
and
And yeah, I think I know those.
and you tend to have those that are more considered. Many a times, I've been in board meetings where often, but not always, the finance director can be quite considered,
Mm,
quite considered
yeah.
because their type of role demands detail, demands consideration. And what I think is really important within any culture and any business is awareness.
Mm,
Awareness that, for example, I tend to in meetings, I can recognize the quieter, more introverted type, and I will wait. I will say, so B,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? And
Mm.
just stop talking.
Yeah, it's having the ability to, and we don't in the real world, everything's going really fast. There's too much pressure, too many priorities that are shouting for, attention, and it does take time and the ability to step back and allow for different people's perspectives to come in, allow to notice it, notice yourself, notice other people. I mean, on this one about not speaking up in meetings, in some of the experiences I've had, particularly with sort of newer or younger career professionals. Let's start with newer. I think, particularly in sales, I think there's this expectation that they would be quite extroverted. They would be completely confident to say. And let's not forget that they're trying to understand themselves, like the culture that they've just arrived into. And I'm not talking the first few weeks, I'm talking that could take the first few months. How is everybody operating? Because, did they get onboarded with a brilliant understanding of everything that to expect? Is there clarity for them? And they use those meetings to gain that clarity. What's the dynamic? How's it going? And they're not going to, particularly if there's anything about this putting your head above the parapet or asking a silly question that might come with some judgment on you. Is it a silly question if they didn't know the answer? Whose fault is that? But they're not going to feel okay until they've sussed it all out, really, introvert or not. I think there's an element of making sure that I understand and join the dots before I become confident enough and comfortable enough to be able to speak up in meetings, which might be, I don't I that was new news for me. I had no idea, and I've been here like 4 months or something like that.
That's the perfect description, really, of the power of establishing a culture within a workplace that is all-encompassing, that
Mhm.
isn't a case of being very subjective, that it's understanding. I'm going to use the wrong phrase here, but run with it. It's understanding the rules of the game, right? And those
Mm.
rules need to play to strengths. So
Yeah,
it's got to be okay to ask any question. It's got to
it
be
it
okay
has.
to ask any question. And I think we also need to be mindful that when it comes to culture, if you want people to be productive in any environment, consistency is important. I
Mm.
had one client, and that I'm not going to name at all, who did the disc profiling psychometric with
hmm
all the leadership team. And the MD turned around and said, "Now you know what color I am. That's how you need to treat me." What?
It's
It's
like
all about that, right?
how you need to treat me. Oh, okay. So what happened to our understanding and the self-awareness part of doing that
There
activity?
you go.
And doesn't it keep you in that place? So I've got my color, I know what I am now, and things like that. And whilst it's great for opening that dialogue, and helping people with the chat that they've not been brave enough or able or felt enabled to do, um, it can cause this kind of, oh, this is me, this is who I am. You need to accept that now. It's not really allowing for that growth. But, getting back to they don't speak up in meetings. Um, there's so many reasons why someone wouldn't. And one thing that I want to really mention here that I see happening time and time again is actually we forget, your consistency absolutely bang on, but consistency in understanding and mutual respect. I think if we can keep the consistency around communication and understanding and mutual respect, we'll go much, much further, much faster if we can retain that.
Agreed. And so I think what we're saying here is culture is so important. We've had one out of the we've had a belter out the bowl that talks about speaking up in meetings, but it just really introduces this idea of how culture is so critical for functions to work well. And that is
Absolutely.
about effective communication. That is about respect. It is about consistency. These things are critical if loads of elements of business is going to work well.
Mm,
We pick one that stands out that we see on a number of occasions, but actually it's a whole bunch of impacts it has when you
yeah.
have that culture.
Absolutely. And the most significant cost to that is recruiting
Yeah.
and recruiting well, recruiting what right, making sure that we can keep that understanding and respect going through all of the recruitment process into the business so that the culture that you're growing is not an expectation versus reality thump
Yeah, and
that sometimes happens.
I think so. And to me, it's a bit like, and we'll finish on this perhaps. It's a bit like so many businesses that I see when a new recruit arrives, there's a laptop on their desk, there's a pad, the pen, there's a drinking cup these days. That seems to be a
Mm,
favorite thing.
yeah,
But as simple as it sounds, it defines and helps build an understanding of what it is to work at that place. In other
yeah,
words, that the employer cares enough to give you the tools of the job.
yeah,
When that becomes a defining point of a culture, care, respect, communication, I think it changes everything.
it does. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah,
that was a
love
real
that one.
belter, that one, B. I loved every minute of it, and so looking forward to the next one.
Yes, we'll see you next time.
Will do.